Is your class, what, Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Or?
Yeah, ours is Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And then, so is the Friday class pretty empty?
No, it actually stays pretty
Most
full.
people show up. It's just
Oh.
no one wants to be there.
Yeah.
Huh. They must not schedule as many classes on Fridays then.
Yeah, they know
Yeah.
college students don't want to be.
Nobody wants to be bothered on a Friday afternoon to come out and learn about math, you know?
Right.
Like, this campus is dead by 3 o'clock. So
I've noticed that. I'm starting to learn to come earlier. So I'm Jeff. You see it on the card. So what's your name?
I'm Jackson. It's
Jackson?
nice to meet you.
I have a nephew named Jackson.
I'm Rylan.
Rylan? Okay. So I guess we'll take you one at a time. Whoever wants to answer first, what do you think happens after we die? What's your...
I'm personally a believer that nothing really happens. Your brain just stops functioning and you go back to nothingness.
And you say that with a smile on your face. Is that a good thought? Like you...
You know, there's some comfort in that. I've never thought eternity somewhere sounds like a good time. That's a long time.
Yeah.
I'd get bored.
Yeah.
Personally, I like the idea of just it makes it seem more valuable when it's limited.
What if I was to say, you know how big the universe is? And I just saw a picture this morning of a section of the sky that is like so full of stars that there's no way you could ever count them all. And then they said, well, each of those is actually not a star, it's a galaxy. Mm-hmm. Like the Milky Way galaxy. Mm-hmm. And then, so with billions of stars in that.
Wow.
And so do you think that'd get boring to explore the universe?
Yeah, that's a good
See what I'm
perspective.
saying? Like there's a lot we still don't know,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to be learned yet. And then if there's a creator, God, that made all of that, wouldn't God be even more infinite, and like we would never get bored of learning about God, the creator of all that? That's just a little pushback.
Yeah.
So would you say, Rylan, that you don't believe in God or a creator or anything?
Not personally. I was raised religiously, but I kind of just lost connection with it. It never really stuck to me.
Yeah. So can you identify a particular time that you would say?
7 or 8.
Yeah.
I was pretty young when I stopped going to church and all that.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. I never felt that spiritual connection.
Uh-huh.
To me, I never felt like prayer. To me, that was always just thinking really hard about something. Like,
Yeah.
I never felt like it did anything.
Okay. So how about you, Jackson?
I feel like mine is it's complex. I believe in God, and I believe that Jesus was a man and that Jesus existed. But as far as like church doctrine goes, and as far as like actually following a set like Catholicism, Mormonism, Presbyterian, whatever
Organized religion.
yeah, whatever organized religion, I don't really follow any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was raised Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I went, my whole life I was in Catholic education. But for myself, I always envisioned God and the afterlife to be like what you want it to be. Like it's cliche, but like if somebody says like, go to your happy place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always imagined heaven was your happy place, and that everybody had their own like self-tailored, like, I always hoped that mine would be like, I love fishing, so like my heaven would be just like on the biggest lake in the world with all the fish in it,
Mm-hmm.
something like that kind of a concept, or
Yeah.
like, if your happy place
Like
is
eternal bliss.
Yeah, eternal bliss. Or like if your happy place is in Florida, you spend your whole eternity. Your eternity is a beach somewhere, a beautiful beach somewhere. I feel like it's personally tailored to what makes your soul happy and what makes you, in and of yourself, the most happy.
Yeah. And when you say you do believe in God, do you believe in a personal God or just like a power, impersonal force or something? Or like,
I would probably,
how do you relate to God?
if I had to label myself as anything, it would probably be deist.
Uh-huh.
If I had to say so. Like, I'm sure there's a God, and I'm sure God is out there. I don't doubt that God exists. I mean, there's simply too much that happens, and the world is too grand and complex for there not to be a higher power. I think it's more likely that there's a higher power and something that set this all into motion.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he has that interpersonal, like, active role still. Like, I personally think
So
God.
a deist, as in like I think they call it the watchmaker. Like he built, God is like someone who built a watch and then he wound it up and then he stepped back to see what had happened.
Precisely.
And is not intimately involved anymore.
Precisely, yeah. He
Yeah.
just simply got the ball rolling, and
I think
while he
that's-
may have had a plan for what he wanted to happen, like, yeah, he may have planned out, like, okay, Earth is going to be formed, there's going to be dinosaurs, there's going to be an the whole progression of events. I believe he may have planned that out, but I don't think he's been actively pulling the strings, like, oh, this guy didn't pray enough, he needs to go to war with somebody and die because of it. Like, I don't think he's actively guiding history.
Yeah.
It's more so just, it's taking the course it's taking, but he allowed us to be even,
Yeah.
he allowed the motions to get going.
Yeah. So, not meaning to start an argument between you guys, but you kind of have, like, you don't believe in God, you do. How could you convince each other? What would you have to say to Rylan?
Well, and I'll be honest, I can see Rylan's viewpoint because there was a span of time back freshman, sophomore year, I did get a little atheist. I was very much the farthest I've ever been from any kind of religion.
Yeah.
Very openly slamming the church, just like slamming the whole concept of it all, but I was at a rough time in my life. I didn't have many friends. I was overweight, so there was other factors contributing.
Was that around
to it.
COVID time?
Yes, very much. That was right after COVID. So I was fresh off the heels of the lockdown, and that was how the lockdown, I did not fare well with all that. So
Yeah. How about you? Did that affect you at all?
The lockdown?
Yeah, just
Nah, that didn't really affect my faith at all. Well,
Yeah.
my lack thereof. But
yeah. Yeah.
I should say, though, that I understand where he's coming from because I understand the atheist argument. Because I pay attention, I care a lot about science, and I care a lot about, like, the way the world really works, if you want to put it like that, but
Here's a thought, kind of combining what you're thinking and what you're thinking. So an atheist basically doesn't believe that God exists, or I guess they would say they have no beliefs. Sometimes I feel. I guess you got to get going, but
it's okay. We still got another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, real quickly. If I say there is no God, that's an absolute statement.
Yeah.
As far as, like, if I said there's no gold in China, right?
Yeah.
I would actually have to go to China and, like, dig everywhere in order to
prove it.
find
Yeah, it's
gold.
a non-quantifiable
Now,
statement.
yeah. So now, Christians and most religious people will say, well, God is making himself, revealing himself, making himself known to us. So, so in different ways we can see God at work. But for your view, you would say it's almost like God's hiding,
Yeah.
like God wound up the universe, now he's kind of hiding. So for Ryland, could you say that there is no God? Like, maybe if you went to one of these galaxies I was talking about, one of billions, maybe God's out there somewhere. Like, so you really can't make that absolute statement that God doesn't exist because you haven't been there.
true,
See
but
what I'm saying?
you also can't make the absolute statement that there is a God.
Yeah, it works both ways. Yeah.
That's where I've kind of struggled with it. Of you can have these absolute one or the other statements, but at the end of the day, there is gold in China. I can prove there's gold in China.
Yeah.
You can't prove there's a God.
Well, yeah, and I would actually say, even if you could prove there's a God, as far as the God described in the Bible, like if you could run a scientific experiment on God, if you think about, like, something like electricity, it's kind of like silent, it's kind of like invisible.
It's like the air. You don't see it, but you know it's there.
So if I can conduct experiments on electricity and make it do certain things, it's more powerful than me. It could kill me, but yet I can control it, right? Because we know the laws of physics, or we're learning them, right? So now, if we could conduct an experiment on God and say that if you do X and Y, you will always get Z, no matter what, right? In a way, then we're controlling God. And therefore God would not be God.
Yeah,
If
very
that makes
true.
sense, because God is more powerful than, like, God would be the one who made the laws of physics and is over and above them, isn't beholden to them. See what I'm saying?
True.
So for that reason, I believe, I mean, that's one reason, but for that reason, I believe God is a personal God who makes choices and has preferences and is not beholden to us. He's not like a genie in a bottle where I know if I rub that bottle, the genie will come out, and do my bidding,
It's an interesting concept. I didn't think of it that way, trying to work God into our framework.
into our scientific methodology and all that.
Because it's kind of like, it's like judging somebody 100 years ago on today's moral standings. Like, of course they're going to fall short. Like, of course God's going to fall short when you compare him to us.
Yeah.
That's actually a very interesting concept. I never thought about it like that.
Well, yeah, and another thing that the Bible is very controversial, but the Bible says God is a jealous God.
Yeah.
Now, we would think, oh, how could if God is the supreme being of the universe, how could he ever be jealous? That's such a petty emotion, right? The problem with that, though, is when we think of someone who's jealous, like a jealous boyfriend, or someone who thinks all the attention in the room should be directed at them, we would say something like, who does he think he is? God? See what I'm saying? But for God is God, right? And so God would have every right. Like, if God made the universe to function a certain way, and made us as people made in his image to function a certain way, and we try to find cheap substitutes for that, then God could be jealous and say, you know what, I didn't make you for that. I want you to function, according to how I made you. It's kind of like if I had a race car that only functioned on jet fuel or something.
Yeah.
And I put regular gas in there and just sputtered along. It'd be like, man, I would feel bad because it's not working the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And so it actually makes sense that God would be a jealous God because he made us in a certain way and wants us to function the way he made us, And
Yeah.
so he gets upset when we choose cheap substitutes. So maybe give you I know you guys got to get to go into class, so I don't know if that's give you a little food for thought.
No, that's thanks for approaching us, because I appreciate dialogues like this, and you can't really have dialogues like this anymore. I feel like half the time when you try and have conversations like this,
Shouting match.
it does.
Yeah.
It turns into a shouting match because nobody ever wants to just discuss things anymore. Nobody's ever open to just sit down and have a discussion like me and you, and even if you disagree, like you and Rylan do,
Yeah.
But it's healthy to work that kind of thing out, so you stop
To
having
me,
those
I kind of
disagreements.
take the attitude that, okay, as a teacher, former retired teacher, a lot of people don't really know what the Bible teaches. Like, they've just heard other people sum it up, or especially if you only hear skeptics or you hear sound bites on the internet or whatever. And so I like to try to say, okay, this is actually what it does teach, and a lot of people don't know that. And then I love to hear your opinions and how they came about. And as a Christian, I will tell you that I would want you guys to be Christians, but it's not the goal of my conversation that you guys would say, oh, wow, I think I need to be a Christian right now. You know, that's something that for me, I see it as that's how God worked in my life. And I know if he can work in my life, he can work in anyone's life. It sounds like neither of you have had real personal spiritual experiences that would make you think that God exists or that he cares.
Yeah,
right?
I haven't really had any moments of direct contact to be whoa, something's going on here,
Yeah. And so, so it's okay, I would want my Christian faith, of course, I believe in it. I believe, it's meaningful, it's fulfilling, it's given me a purpose in life. It's given me hope for the future. In so many ways, it's been a blessing for me. And I would want that for you guys. I don't know you, but I would want that for you, right?
Yeah.
But I will, like I said, I don't think I can convince you And I'll walk away from this conversation not having convinced you, but thinking, you know what, their story isn't over yet. Maybe God will work in your lives. Maybe, like you guys are young, who knows what your future holds. So maybe something will happen that you'll say, there is a God.
Yeah, maybe.
And a lot of people have come to that conclusion that we're former atheists. So, matter of fact, I'm going to give you a little book that's written by one who he approached Christianity from, he was an investigative journalist, and his wife was a Christian, and he was trying to prove her wrong. And he was a strong atheist, and he looked at the evidence, and the evidence said, you know what, I guess I need to take this seriously. So that happens to a lot of people if they take a real good look at the evidence. And the world does not give us the evidence because the world wants to promote itself. It doesn't. Yeah. So you kind of have to look for it. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Nothing. I just.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll give you those books, and want to make sure you get to class on time. So.
Yeah. It is definitely 11:06 now.
It's all right.
Okay.
Teacher can wait.
It's history. It's not going anywhere.